Let's get to last week's events. Gee, you set off a storm last week with your comments about North Melbourne, specifically around Glenn Luff. You had a robust exchange with David King. David King also took aim at you, Caro. I want to hear from both of those, or sections of both of those comments from the weekend.
If you are the one that takes control of the list, and this is where I get to, he hasn't been in that position for the period that you're talking about. He hasn't been. So you've got a lower threshold to absolutely checking the facts than what I have. Sort of irks me, this line, because it comes out all the time. If the Kangaroos ring and ask me to do something, I do it. I'm happy to help. But I don't have a role at the club. I'm not invested to the point that Caro thinks I am. It just frustrates me that I keep saying I don't, but I get lumped in like I do.
We might start there. What was your reaction to David's comments about, and there's a tweet that he aimed at you as well?
I think he's totally invested in the club. I think he's a passionate North Melbourne man. You saw the falling out with Brad Scott. We know he's close friends with Adam Simpson. He's angry that I suggest he wants Adam Simpson to coach the club. I reckon he'd love to get Adam Simpson back to the club. I'm not saying David King is actually running this process, but I think he's very much an invested party.
Just on North Melbourne, we had a chat on the same programs as CEO Ben Amafio. I asked him about Alistair Clarkson. Ben, have you approached Alistair Clarkson?
No.
Why not?
Because we have a coach, Kane.
I understand, but if one of the best coaches of all time, who has North Melbourne connection, is available, you would be negligent not to approach him, would you not?
I would be disingenuous and negligent and betraying my current coach if I did that too.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty and the response. It was an enthralling interview that we had, but I just find that hard to believe. We're now at round 11. Alistair Clarkson said he is open to coaching North Melbourne. You've lost 7 games by 50-plus points. The club is a mess, and we know that. He would be great for North Melbourne, Alistair Clarkson. Now, I'm not trying to remove...
They can't say that, though. It was a very well-handled way of deflecting the question.
So you think he has spoken to Alistair? There was no deflection.
Well, they will, like everyone will.
But do you think it is strange that they wouldn't have done that yet? We're at round 11 and you're going to get moving pretty quickly.
Well, they may well have.
So you don't believe him?
Well, I think he handled the question very well.
You said, no, we haven't.
Well, there's ways to understand someone's interest or otherwise without actually having a direct conversation yourself.
Speaking of Ben Amafio, it was interesting to see him and his chairman, Sonia Hood, sitting among the cheer squad during Sunday's game. What did you make of this, Craig?
Well, well, Kane, your thoughts? North Melbourne's beat? You put this on the agenda?
No, well, I think that they criticise whatever they do. So, yeah. I mean, if some people would say that's cringeworthy, some people would think it's unauthentic. I actually don't mind it, getting amongst the people.
I didn't mind it either.
And listening and seeing what their experience on game day is like.
The biggest thing that came out of last week was that Glenn Luff clearly had been given messages from within the club, or thought that was coming from within the club, what you said. You obviously inadvertently used a line that maybe others had used. He didn't feel supported.
Yeah, so just the last point on that, I'm staggered that was the tipping point for him leaving. I thought it was a reasonably benign criticism, and he shouldn't get back into football if he can't handle small criticism like that. So you'd caution...
I don't think there was any suggestion that was... It was specifically that comment.
No,
that was the last thing in a long line. Yeah, the tipping point. That's different to one comment forcing you to leave.
If that's the tipping point for you to leave, you shouldn't be
very
involved
unusual
in football.
But you don't know what's happened before that. The context is important.
I was at that game yesterday, and just some of their performances from players that should be performing better stood out to me. So when you look at North Melbourne, a few of these players are not young anymore from a football speak point of view. Like Luke Davies-Uniacke has touched the footy 17 times. He's not developing like we would have wanted after 60 games. The same with Taron Thomas. They're in the same category. Hugh Greenwood hasn't provided them what they thought they would, and Nick Larkey touched the footy 2 times. Not good enough for players that have been on the senior AFL list for long enough, and that's part of the reason their core group just are in poor form.
High level of angst too, it seemed, on the bench with Jason Horne-Francis. Speaking of, Craig, it's time now for the House of Hutch, 2 weeks in a row.
Well, there's angst around this kid. He's a high-prize draft pick, the highest of prizes, but there is some level of disconnect with the club and his refusal to sign and his kind of mood behaviour going back. The sum of all parts just doesn't seem right. North Melbourne have got an opportunity here, though, to be brave and bold and investigate. Don't fear this. So as we get into the scenarios here around Jason Horne-Francis, point 1, don't fear his exit. Be proactive and understand what it could look like. At least you're armed with the information by going and exploring what a deal might look like at the end of this year. So don't fear his exit. Be proactive and ask the others what it would look like. You can always say no. Explore the previous offers. Have a look at some of these offers that were made for Horne-Francis last year. Pick 7, 15, 26 and Callum Coleman-Jones from Richmond. And there was a bit of a pick shuffle late in the, I assume, as well. And the Adelaide offer the same. Pick 4, 2 future first-rounders and a future second-rounder. You would think Adelaide are going to have an over-the-odds offer again of some description, and you would be rattling their tin on, all right, is Thilthorpe on the table? Is the 2 first-round picks still there? He's got the most currency now while he's contracted, and he got a year to mop it up anyway if he doesn't go or you don't get a good enough offer. So have a look. You know, Buckley left Brisbane and they won 3 premierships. You got the currency now. And the other point is, history says you get way overpaid in these situations. So everyone fears the reputational risk. Oh, it's going to look embarrassing for us. The first pick doesn't want to stay. Just embrace that because people get past it. Griffith left the Bulldogs and they won a flag. Lee Colbert left Geelong and they rebuilt. The reputational risk fades quickly. And the opportunity might be overwhelming before he's really even yet been able to prove himself.
Actually, you can't be serious. They're 11 rounds in. Their greatest ever player, Wayne Carey, saying the club is broken, and you want to trade a guy that's got a year and his contract left as a number 1 pick.
So if the Crows...
They would pick it outside Arden Street if they did that.
If Thilthorpe and early picks are on the table, the first Crows pick might be pick 4 or 5.
Yeah, so essentially it's...
He might already be their best player.
I think it's worth considering that.
Why wouldn't you ask what's available, though?
Because he's been touted already as the future captain of the footy club. Surely you'd go the other way and offer him $750,000 a year for another 4 years.
Well, they've already done that.
And make him the highest paid player.
He hasn't taken the offer.
Not at that sort of money.
And he doesn't look yet emotionally invested in where they're going.
Hutchy, how can you say that? He's played 9 games for him.
What? This is not uncommon.
You can't talk about emotional investment
This is not
for an
uncommon
18-year-old kid.
for first-year players. But if he was chips in, he'd be signing early.
I think that's drastically unfair on a teenager.
I think you have a look at it.
You can always say no. You can just look at every scenario. There might be 10 bids there. They're all not good enough, and you say, you know what, we rate him higher than you do.
Because you know what, I don't think Adelaide would do Rochelle and pick 4 for Jason Horne-Francis right now. So would you do that?
No.
You wouldn't. Yeah, and I don't think North would, and I don't think Adelaide. I think Adelaide.
As a tall, he's been in and out of the team this year 2. Like, if he's on the table for North...
I'd be reluctant to trade the first pick in the draft. I would be, but I think you would have a look at the offers at the end of this year, not at the end of next year when he becomes out of contract because you lose a bit of
leverage. Sends a shocking message to your members if you trade the number 1.
It does, but you know what? You dust yourself off pretty quick when you get a heap of talent in.